By the time this video's finished, you're going to see how the first part, the movement, stability, foundation, and now the grips, the swings, the stances, all come together.
Now that you understand the athletic foundation and how to most effectively put it into motion, the final stage in the building process adds the ballistic stroke. While the stroke itself consists of your hands, arms, and shoulders working together in harmony, it is your lower body that will provide balance and power, and your strong back posture that will keep your stroke level and powerful. With that in mind, the key to generating maximum power in your stroke involves a concept called leverage. Leverage is defined as the action of using a lever, such as a metal bar, pivoted against a fixed fulcrum to gain mechanical advantage. One of the most basic examples of leverage is a seesaw. A seesaw works by applying a downward force on one end of the lever, pivoting against a fixed fulcrum, which lifts the other end of the lever. Ballistic one-handed backhands apply this seesaw type of leverage by extending the hitting arm to create a lever, then using the rib cage for support as a fulcrum. Though the hitting arm is fully extended, it is not completely locked. It is firm enough to function as a lever, yet flexible enough to have some whip snap, similar to the action of a fishing rod. How you grip the racket will have an impact on how much leverage you create in your wrist. The position of your wrist is critical to the overall integrity of your hitting arm, or lever, through the stroke. In an Eastern backhand grip, your wrist and forearm create a position making a small L shape. This is the strongest position of leverage for your wrist. The big L is the position of leverage created between the entire arm and your racket. To maintain leverage as you stroke, your big L shape created by your arm and racket, as well as the small L wrist position, should remain intact throughout the stroke. The final concept you must understand is how to produce the leverage action through the stroke. Your racket is a tool of leverage, similar to a hammer. The downward force of a hammer begins by driving the butt end of the hammer down towards the nail first, as the hammerhead follows. This action allows the hammerhead to travel faster, creating a greater impact on the nail with minimal effort. We call that downward leverage action. The ballistic backhand uses the same principles, but the leverage action is forward. If the ball represents the nail, you should drive the butt end of the racket, similar to driving a hammer. In the backswing, you align the butt of the racket to be behind and beneath the ball. And with a quick pulling action, you drive the butt end towards contact. At the last moment, the racket head accelerates through contact in a leverage action.
Should I hit with one hand or two hands? No, I really can't tell you that because they both have advantages and they both have some disadvantages. You can become ballistic in a one-handed or a two-handed. Your size, your style of play, your mentality will have a major impact on whether you become one-hand or two-hand. I like the two hands, but then in turn I have my Tommy Haas. There's Pete Sampras, but then I have my Agassi, and I have Monica Seles. So I have a lot of great two-handed players that I've worked with. I'm working now with Alexandra Stevenson, magnificent one-handed backhand, but she has strength. She can cover the ball. She can hit that biting slice. The low approach ball to come to the net, easier transition to go to a first volley. The element of reach, you perhaps don't have to be quite as fast to get into position because you can reach out with one hand. I really sincerely believe that the two hands can return a little better than most people can with the one hand. Also, you can hold off until the last split second to hit that two-handed. You can hit the top spin lob. You can hit the angle shots. Why? The element of two hands give you the feeling of more security and strength. But no matter what you select, you've got to go for it. It's got to become ballistic, not just getting the ball back in play.
Ballistic backhands, whether one-handed or two, operate within a game plan with a constant objective in mind. You must establish a threat in the mind of your opponents that at any given moment, with the slightest of opportunities, your backhand could end the point. Though most of the time you're working at various rally speeds with variations of trajectory and spins to add more margin of error to your game plan. So over the course of a match, you wear your opponent down with accurate placements on a consistent basis. To put it more simply, use a variety of shots to set up more ballistic opportunities and avoid becoming trigger happy, going for too many putaways. But when the opportunity does present itself, you must be absolutely confident in your ability to execute.
All of you, no matter what level of play you participate in, have one key issue to contend with: the mental approach. Can I do it when the bell rings? If you can do it in practice, you can do it when the bell rings. But what does it mean? You have to do it over and over and over again. Make lots of mistakes, overhit, blow key points to key matches that you could have won perhaps by pushing it in. If you're willing to take a little bit more of a chance and look at the long-range goals, you can overcome that mental fear of saying, oh, no, I can't do it, I know if I just get it back, I can win. Don't do that. Look at Agassi, look at Selish. I will always respect them. Pete Sampras. When they're down and have a key shot, watch out. They are dangerous because that's when they go ballistic, and that's what you must do.
We begin our exploration of the one-handed ballistic blast looking at the grips. There's the continental grip, the eastern backhand grip, and the semi-western backhand grip. Continental may in fact be the preferred grip for many other aspects of the game, but it is a weaker grip for a ballistic blast. When driving the ball or applying topspin, in a continental grip, the wrist is forced out of the small L leverage position. This weakens the support of the wrist, allowing the lever to break down through contact, resulting in a loss of power and control. Even the slightest off-center contact, and the stroke breaks down. The contact zone that corresponds to the continental grip is much further back than that of the eastern backhand grip. To hit the ball to the same down-the-line target, contact is made much closer to the body in the continental grip, which limits your power. The eastern backhand grip proves to be the most powerful yet versatile grip for the ballistic blast. This grip provides great support to your lever arm, as indicated by the small L wrist position. When producing topspin and sharp angles, an eastern backhand grip can rotate the forearm while the wrist position remains strong. The contact zone is out in front of the body more so than the continental grip allows, giving you the benefit of using your body weight more effectively for leverage. Some players will shift into a semi-western grip when they want to exaggerate heavy topspin on the ball. The semi-western grip's preferred contact zone is higher than that of the eastern, making balls that are low in the strike zone more difficult to handle. For overall best performance, we recommend the eastern backhand grip. Now with the eastern backhand grip intact, let's take a closer look at the backswing. As there are many styles of play, so is there variety in the methods players use to take the racket back. However, the most important fundamental to achieve in the backswing is to prepare the butt end of the racket to drive forward. In this stroke, we see Alexandra's backswing includes a shoulder turn, with the right shoulder blade facing towards the contact zone. As she continues to set the backswing position, her racket hand begins a downward loop action as her arm extends fully. With the backswing completely set, her hand is out behind the incoming ball and below the contact point, and her racket head is next to her hip and ready to go ballistic. Notice how the palm of her hand faces towards the ball in this position. Positioning the racket head this way provides more distance for the racket head to travel and generate speed. The contact zone is positioned between the shoulders when hitting from both the open and neutral hitting stances and provides an area or range of contact points. Making contact late in the zone directs the ball inside out to down the line. To direct the ball towards the center of the court, contact is made in the middle of the zone. Making contact early in the zone directs the ball from deep cross court to sharp angles. The follow-through of your stroke should find your arm at full extension, reaching out towards the direction of your shot. How the racket head actually finishes in the stroke will be determined by how much spin was used versus driving power. Either way, your racket arm must extend fully through the stroke, accelerating all the way to follow-through. Looking at the complete forward stroke, to start the action from the backswing, the shoulders begin to rotate as the arm extends fully. The butt end of the racket in a pulling type action then drives towards the contact zone. As the arm pivots from the shoulder, it begins to draw the butt of the racket across the body as the arm remains extended. This action accelerates the racket head through the contact zone using leverage. The shoulders will rotate only until the center of the chest faces the contact zone. At this point, the opposite arm is used as a counterbalance to keep the shoulders from rotating beyond that point. It is the extended arm working as a lever against the rib cage that will generate the ballistic racket head speed, not the full rotation of your shoulders. Once the racket head is passed completely through the zone, the hitting arm begins to separate from the rib cage, extending to full reach on the follow-through.
Quite often when you talk about the killer forehand, the ballistic backhand, you think only about the stroke itself. Wait a minute. It becomes ballistic in many more ways than you ever thought of. Number one, you put the fear into the opponent. They have to play differently. They have to serve a little differently, knowing that you can attack not only from the forehand side, but now from the backhand side. They also know that when they have control of the court, if they don't keep that control of the court and give you a backhand, you're going to hurt them because you now have a ballistic backhand. So remember, the ballistic backhand carries over much further than just the stroke itself. It's the mental impact that it has on the opponent and the confidence it gives you.
The one-handed knifing slice is a ballistic shot with underspin and can be one of the most useful weapons in your arsenal. Even two-handed players learn to develop a more biting action using just one hand. In the most extreme forcing situations, it is often the only option you'll have. Not only is it a versatile tool for difficult situations, it is a master of disguise in both preparation and execution, leaving your opponents on their heels the next time you drop shot. The knifing slice approach is a penetrating shot, often with unpredictable amounts of spin, skidding low off the bounce. The continental grip is the most common and preferred grip for a knifing slice, providing a wider range of shot options, great feel on touch shots, can work with balls anywhere in the strike zone, and can achieve powerful ballistic qualities because leverage stays intact throughout the stroke. The backswing preparation for a knifing slice again varies with style, but the key components that create ballistic results begin with a good shoulder turn. Rotation to the point that your shoulder blade is pointing towards your contact zone. Many players prefer to position the racket hand up at shoulder height, with the racket and arm making the big L leverage position, the hitting arm with a slight bend in the elbow. As they continue to set the backswing to a position where the butt end will drive forward, the hand drops below the height of the contact point and the arm begins to fully extend. To start the forward action, the shoulders begin to rotate. But notice how the shoulders stop rotation sharply. That's with the help of the opposite arm working as a counterbalance, prohibiting the shoulders from rotating any further. It's the stopping of the shoulders' rotation that sends all the energy from the strong foundation down the hitting arm and into the racket head. The butt of the racket starts forward towards the ball, then arcs down and across, sending the racket head up and through contact. The hitting arm remains extended, maintaining leverage in the stroke, wrist position, and swing line. The magic behind the knifing slice lies in your ability to control and discipline your foundation and maintain a firm but flexible hitting arm.
When you watch this video, you might be saying, is Nick pushing us towards one-handed backhands? Partially, not totally, and I'll tell you why. Again, I go back to my philosophy, work with each student within their style of play, their mentality, and their physical makeup. Yesterday, pow, in making this ballistic backhand, I'm conked right in the head. A young player, Leighton Hewitt, 5'10", small, starting to write a lot of the record books with a two-handed backhand. And oh yes, you think that Agassi and Kolfennikov, Serena Williams, Venus Williams are finished? They're just beginning. Andre has got a couple of more years, and so does Kolfennikov. So I end it with a simple message. Each person should play according to their style, but at least experiment with a one-handed and a two-handed backhand.
The two-handed ballistic blast is a stroke that generates its power through the use of body rotation and creating a leverage action as the hands and arms work together in harmony. The grips you select will determine the look and function of your stroke and have a great impact on the amount of leverage you can create. While it is the top hand which determines the preferred height of the contact zone, it is the bottom hand that determines the stroke action. Let's take a closer look at the primary grips for the bottom hand, how leverage is affected, and the stroke that matches the grip. Our first set of grips have the top hand in an Eastern forehand grip, as well as the bottom hand positioned in an Eastern forehand grip. With these two grips positioned this way, the stroke becomes what is called top hand dominant, or in this case, left hand dominant. If you look for the positions of leverage that support the stroke, you'll quickly see that all the leverage is provided by the left arm, and the right arm has no small L leverage position in the wrist. Styles of play will vary the method of how the racket actually goes back, but the key component we must see in the backswing preparation is the butt of the racket pointing towards the contact zone, prepared to produce a leverage action. With the backswing fully set, her shoulder blade points towards the contact zone, along with the butt of the racket, as the racket head is positioned down and back. To begin the forward swing, her hips start the action by pivoting and rotating sharply. As the hip rotation begins, the shoulders twist into action as they pivot in sync. Notice how the body rotation all happens within a cylinder. With the right arm in a bent position, the right shoulder in a pulling action draws the butt of the racket forward towards the contact point, but only for a brief moment. Then the butt of the racket follows the right elbow across the body. This action by the right arm accelerates the racket head out of the backswing, around and up through the contact zone. As the left hand began the action working as a fulcrum of support, allowing the racket head to accelerate out of the backswing, the left hand quickly switches roles here, in mid-stroke, and begins driving forward through the contact zone. You could say that the hands function together, yet fight for control when using these grips. Notice here how the elbows are bent outward, looking as if the two hands are pushing against each other. You can see how the right arm becomes awkward as it transfers the action to the left arm. With the bottom hand positioned in such a weak grip, the right arm is more functional, staying bent and flexible and closer to the body. This makes the contact zone close to the body as well, and centered between the shoulders when hitting from the open and neutral stances. On the follow-through of the stroke, the elbows extend out and across and away from the body. Though there are a few players who have experienced success with these grips, we don't recommend the use of two forehand grips because of limitations on leverage and shot options. In our second set of grips, the top hand will stay in an Eastern forehand grip, but now the bottom hand shifts to a continental grip. This change in the bottom hand will involve the same left-hand dominant stroke as we studied for the first set of grips, but now the action of the right arm and elbow will become more efficient. The hands will work better in harmony, and overall leverage will improve in the action. Let's take a closer look at the ballistic backhand of Orange Bowl champion Tatiana Golovin, who uses a softer version of the continental grip on the bottom hand and an Eastern forehand grip on the top hand. Her right arm begins extended and flexed in the backswing, with the racket head positioned down and back. As she starts the forward swing with hip and shoulder rotation, her right arm pulls the butt of the racket towards the ball. Notice how Tatiana's arms never get into a position that looks like the hands are struggling against each other, like we saw earlier. The right elbow tucks in tight. As the stroke progresses, the right arm bends to a 90-degree angle, making an L-shaped position. Notice how the right elbow becomes a pivot point for the stroke through the contact zone. The racket head accelerates up and out of the backswing and around into the contact zone, which again is positioned close to the body and centered between the shoulders when hitting from an open or neutral stance. Tatiana provides a perfect demonstration of the discipline and control of a strong foundation, which she developed with the help of ballet and dance. And more importantly, her backhand is truly ballistic. Here we have Candice Fuchs. Like many players, she shifts the bottom hand more towards a backhand grip into a strong continental position. This allows Candice to extend her right arm even further and make contact further out in front of the body than Tatiana's contact zone. This grip combination is ideal for players who have ambidextrous qualities, which means they have skills to be right or left-handed. The right arm is stronger and contributes more in these grips, but the stroke remains left-hand dominant through the contact zone. Watch how Candice rotates her hips and shoulders in a perfectly level pivot action. The pivoting of the right elbow is a key element using these grips. It works in sync with the entire right side of the body as it comes to a stop, going no further forward, forcing the hips and shoulders into a pivoting action. This powers the left side of the body through the stroke. You need a strong foundation to make this happen efficiently. All the power comes from the weight transfer generating the body's pivoting action, making the entire stroke happen within a cylinder. When the stance is no longer neutral and you need to hit from an open stance, you no longer have the benefit of using a weight transfer to drive the body's rotation. Instead, you must position your body weight to stay balanced over the outside foot, with the center of your chest staying over the point of contact throughout the stroke. Ballistic power from this stance comes from the hips anchoring down in a strong foundation position. Notice how the hips remain facing more towards the net as the shoulders pivot back. This action of having your hips face forward twists and coils the torso as your shoulders turn back. The hip creates a strong anchor point for a quick uncoiling action of the shoulders, propelling ballistic energy down through the hitting arms and onto the ball. One of the big advantages to using the continental grip on the bottom hand is that your right arm becomes more accustomed to being able to work independently, as in the one-handed knifing slice. Plus, you will develop better skills for working around the net with one hand. To conclude, the Eastern forehand top hand and the continental bottom hand is a versatile combination, especially with players who are so fortunate to have abilities as both right and left-handers.
And what I'm doing now is to get a little bit more racket speed, to develop a little spin, angle shots, and also when she gets caught on a half volley or a difficult ball, the left hand will help her. Now, we've been doing this now for about a week, and already there's a major difference. And when you do this, let the left hand be, or the upper hand be right up on top where it's going to be when she puts the bottom hand on the racket, not down at the bottom part of the racket. All right, now put your right hand on there. Now let the left hand take over, right there. Good. Work it as much as you can. Perfect. Good girl. I've just talked to my sports guru, and you know what they said? Nick, turn it off after every 10 or 15 minutes. It's dynamite. No one should be allowed to watch this in entirety.
Todd Reed is one of the most amazing young talents in the world today. Native of Australia, he is sure to become one of the next legacies of the Academy. Put all the finesse, creativity, and competitive fire of a McEnroe together with the power and quickness of an Agassi, and you begin to understand Todd's potential. His grips for the backhand have the top hand in an Eastern forehand grip, but the bottom hand is in between a continental and an Eastern backhand grip. With these grips, Todd is right on the edge of becoming a right arm dominant stroke, different from all the other backhands you've seen so far. You could say his bottom hand is far enough towards an Eastern backhand grip that he is able to generate the power with his right arm, similar to the mechanics of a one-handed blast. But he's not far enough into the Eastern backhand grip to have the small L wrist position indicating the support of leverage. This means Todd must rely on his left hand to support and drive the stroke, resulting in a stroke that is neither left or right hand dominant. The right arm starts the stroke, then transfers the driving action to the left hand through the contact zone. You can see how smooth and seamless Todd is able to transfer the power between the hands. Compared to the previous two-handed strokes, Todd's contact zone is even further out in front of him, with the preferred height of the contact zone a little lower as a result of the extended right arm. In the previous two-handed strokes, remember how the right arm remained bent through the stroke. By extending his right arm, the stroke functions more like the one-handed backhand, using the rib cage as a fulcrum of support. He demonstrates great leverage in the forward swing as he drives the butt of the racket towards the ball. However, Todd does experience some difficulty trying to keep his two arms contributing equally through the stroke. Sometimes his right side wants to dominate too much, and at other times his left side wants to dominate, causing problems with consistency. One of the solutions that would allow Todd to strengthen the support of his right arm and become more right arm dominant through the stroke would involve shifting the bottom hand into a full Eastern backhand grip. Todd's stroke would look much more like this stroke if he were to shift the bottom hand into a full Eastern backhand grip, the same grip that's used for the one-handed ballistic blast. You'll see that the right arm is now fully extended with the support of the small L wrist position. The right arm is strong and ready to take on the role of the dominant arm throughout the stroke. This means that the power will come from the extended right arm working against the rib cage to drive the butt of the racket forward, all in sync with the hip and shoulder turn. However, the right arm and hand function differently, actually drawing the butt of the racket towards the body as the left hand provides a support fulcrum. This action leverages the racket head into the contact zone. Once the racket head is passed completely through the contact zone, the arms continue out towards the target and across the body. Now with the right hand producing the action and the role of the left hand changed, it is not uncommon to see a one-hand release follow-through, especially when players get caught in a closed stance. As the right hand pivots the racket against the left through the contact zone, the racket head speed draws the racket from the left hand on the follow-through, resulting in what's called a one-hand release. This is all made possible by the improved strength in the bottom hand. Notice again how the body pivots and rotates all within a cylinder to generate the lever action. For players who are strictly right or left-handed and have very little natural skill with the opposite arm, these grips are ideal, allowing your naturally dominant side to maintain control of the stroke. Now that you understand the primary combination of grips, realize that there are other variations. If the top hand becomes more semi-western, it will move the preferred height of the contact zone higher off the ground. The most important component is to develop a grip combination that suits your style of play and your skills. Then work with the stroke that matches those grips. The more leverage you can build into a stroke, the better. And one final note, if you relax your hands more and don't choke the life out of the racket, you'll find the stroke will do the work for you.